You know that moment when you catch your girlfriend in bed with your brother and realize you're about to take everything in the divorce? Yeah, that was Tuesday for me. Except I wasn't supposed to be home for another 3 hours. My brain does this thing when reality decides to punch me in the face. It goes completely silent for about 10 seconds. Like someone hit the mute button on my entire existence. I'm standing there in my own bedroom doorway, keys still dangling from my finger, and my consciousness just stops. The silence breaks with the sound of my keychain hitting the hardwood floor. That tiny metallic clink might as well have been a gunshot, because suddenly everything snaps into hyperfocus. The rumpled sheets that I'd made that morning, the pile of clothes, his jeans, her bra, my fucking Northwestern University t-shirt that he'd borrowed last weekend, the way her hair was fanned across my pillow, the same pillow I'd been sleeping on for the past 2 years. And Marcus, my baby brother Marcus, who I'd been supporting through law school, who ate Sunday dinners at my table, who'd been crashing at my place every other weekend because his apartment was too loud to study. The bastard had the audacity to freeze mid-motion like some kind of perverted statue. Sarah's eyes went wide, not with shame, mind you, but with that deer-in-headlights panic you get when you realize you've been caught red-handed. Her mouth formed this perfect little O of surprise, and I found myself wondering if that was the same expression she made when she was faking it with me. Spoiler alert, it probably was. My heart started doing this weird thing where it felt like it was beating both too fast and too slow at the same time. You know when you're on a roller coaster and you hit that moment right before the big drop? That stomach in your throat time-suspended feeling? Yeah, that, but with the added bonus of watching your entire life implode in real time. The rational part of my brain, the part that had graduated summa cum laude from business school, the part that could crunch numbers and negotiate deals without breaking a sweat, started cataloging details like evidence in a court case. The way her engagement ring was sitting on my nightstand, thoughtful of her to take it off, really. The fact that they'd used my expensive sheets, the ones she'd bought me for my birthday, which now seemed like some cosmic joke, the half-empty bottle of wine on the dresser, the good stuff from my personal collection. They'd made themselves right at home in my betrayal. Marcus finally found his voice, and I watched his lips move as he stammered out some pathetic excuse. But here's the thing about shock. It doesn't just mute your brain, it mutes everything else too. His words sounded like they were coming from underwater, distant and distorted. Something about it not being what it looked like. Classic. About being able to explain, sure, buddy. About how sorry they were. Oh, they would be. Sarah sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest like modesty meant something at this point. She was crying, or at least making the facial expressions that typically accompany crying. But I couldn't hear the sobs over the white noise that had replaced my ability to process human emotion. My hands started shaking first. Just a little tremor in my fingers, like I'd had too much coffee. Then it spread up my arms, and I realized I was gripping the doorframe so hard my knuckles had gone white. My body was having reactions my brain hadn't approved yet. The practical part of me kicked in, the part that had been trained to compartmentalize, to push emotion aside and focus on action items. It started making lists. Find somewhere else to sleep tonight. Change the locks. Figure out what the hell happens next. But underneath that practical voice was something else, something darker and more primal. It was whispering about justice, about making them pay, about ensuring they understood exactly what they'd thrown away. I turned around and walked out. Not because I was taking the high road. Fuck the high road. I walked out because I needed to think, and I couldn't do that with them staring at me like I was the problem. Like I was the intruder in my own damn bedroom. The hallway felt longer than usual, and I could hear movement behind me. Scrambling, whispered conversations. The sound of people trying to get dressed in a hurry. Part of me wanted to turn around and start screaming, to let out all the rage and hurt and betrayal that was building up in my chest like steam in a pressure cooker. Instead, I grabbed my laptop bag from the kitchen counter and walked out the front door. My car was in the driveway, and I sat in the driver's seat for I don't know how long, staring at my house, our house, trying to process what had just happened. The automatic garage door opener was clipped to my visor, and I kept looking at it, thinking about how easy it would be to just go back inside and pretend this was all some horrible nightmare. But the shaking in my hands had spread to my entire body now, and I knew this was real. This was my new reality. My girlfriend of 3 years and my brother had been fucking in my bed, in my house, with my wine. The betrayal felt physical, like someone had reached into my chest and rearranged my organs. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat felt like it was echoing in an empty cavity where my trust used to live. I started the car. The drive to my buddy Jake's place was a blur of traffic lights and turn signals and muscle memory. I called him from the parking lot of his apartment complex, and when he answered, I could hear the immediate shift in his voice when I told him I needed somewhere to crash. Jake's the kind of friend who doesn't ask questions when you show up at his door looking like you've been hit by a truck. He just opens a beer, hands it to you, and waits. So I told him everything. The whole sordid story, from walking in on them to walking out, complete with all the gory details my brain had been cataloging. Jesus Christ, man, he said when I finished. Sarah and Marcus? How long has this been going on? That was the question, wasn't it? How long had they been lying to my face? How many family dinners had they sat through, making small talk and passing the potatoes while knowing they were screwing each other behind my back? How many times had Marcus borrowed money from me while he was borrowing my girlfriend? The rage was starting to break through the shock now, hot and sharp and focused. It felt good, actually. Better than the numbness, better than the hurt. Rage was something I could work with. I don't know. I told Jake, but I'm going to find out. He raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I took a long drink of my beer and felt something cold and calculating settle into place where my heart used to be. I'm thinking Sarah's about to learn what happens when you fuck with someone who has access to all your financial information. Because here's the thing about living with someone for 3 years, about sharing bank accounts and credit cards and planning a future together. You get to know all their secrets, every purchase, every debt, every little financial indiscretion they think you don't notice. And Sarah had been very, very careless with her money. Jake grinned, and I realized he could see the wheels turning in my head. Oh, this is going to be good. The plan was already forming, piece by piece, like a puzzle solving itself. I'd built my career on being thorough, on understanding every angle, on never making a move without knowing exactly how it would play out. And now I was going to apply those same skills to the most important project of my life, making sure Sarah and Marcus understood that actions have consequences. My phone had been buzzing all evening. Texts from Sarah, missed calls from Marcus, voicemails I wasn't ready to listen to yet. But I wasn't ignoring them out of hurt or sadness anymore. I was ignoring them because I was busy planning their destruction. I didn't sleep that first night. Not because I was heartbroken, well, not entirely, but because my brain had shifted into what I call acquisition mode. It's this mental state I slip into during hostile takeovers at work, where emotion gets filed away in a locked drawer and pure strategy takes over. Every detail becomes important. Every angle gets examined. Every weakness gets cataloged for future exploitation. Jake had passed out on the couch around 2 a.m., but I was wide awake on his guest bed, staring at the ceiling and mentally sorting through 3 years of shared finances like a forensic accountant. And let me tell you, Sarah had been sloppy. So fucking sloppy. See, when you're planning to marry someone, you start combining things. Bank accounts, credit cards, insurance policies, investment portfolios. Sarah had been eager to merge our financial lives, almost suspiciously eager, now that I thought about it. She'd moved her direct deposit to our joint account within 6 months of us moving in together. She'd added me to her credit cards as an authorized user. She'd even made me the beneficiary on her 401k. For the future, she'd said, all doe-eyed and sincere. For our future. What a fucking joke. But here's where it gets interesting. I'd been the one managing our finances. I'd been the one paying the bills, monitoring the accounts, making sure everything stayed organized and efficient. Sarah had been more than happy to let me handle the boring money stuff, while she focused on her Instagram photography business and her part-time job at the boutique. My phone buzzed again. Another text from her. Please, can we talk? I know how this looks, but there's so much you don't understand. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Understanding? Oh, I understood perfectly. I understood that she'd been spending $300 a month at lingerie stores that I'd never seen the benefit of. I understood that she'd been making mysterious cash withdrawals every other week. I understood that her girls' nights out had been costing us $200 a pop in Uber charges to and from hotels downtown. All those late nights when she'd come home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. All those weekends when she'd suddenly needed space to think, right around the time Marcus would disappear for days at a time. All those family gatherings where they'd been just a little too careful not to interact, like actors who'd over-rehearsed their blocking. The signs had been there. I'd just been too trusting, too focused on building our future together to see them. My laptop was open on the guest bed beside me, and I'd been scrolling through our joint bank account statements for the past 4 hours. 3 years of financial records categorized and cross-referenced, painting a picture of deception that would have made my business school professors proud. The data told a story. Starting about 8 months ago, Sarah's spending patterns had changed. More cash withdrawals, more miscellaneous expenses, more charges at restaurants I'd never been to, stores I'd never heard of, hotels that were definitely not work-related. 8 months. That's how long they'd been planning this behind my back. I opened a new spreadsheet and started building a timeline. Every suspicious transaction, every unexplained expense, every lie she told about where she was going and who she was with. The numbers don't lie, and they were telling me a story about a woman who'd been systematically betraying me while I'd been paying for the privilege. But here's the beautiful part. In her eagerness to merge our financial lives, Sarah had given me access to everything. Every account, every credit card, every subscription service she'd signed up for. I knew her passwords, her security questions, her mother's maiden name. I knew her social security number and her bank routing codes and the exact amount she had in her emergency fund that she thought I didn't know about. And the best part, I had legal access to all of it. We weren't married yet, but we'd been living together for 3 years with shared financial responsibilities. I was an authorized user on her accounts. I was listed as her emergency contact with her bank. I was, for all intents and purposes, her financial partner, which meant I could do things, legal things, completely above board, entirely justified things. My phone rang. Marcus this time. I watched his name flash on the screen, remembering all the times I'd answered his calls at 2 a.m. when he needed bail money or help with rent, or someone to talk him through whatever crisis was destroying his life that week. All the times I'd been there for him, supported him, treated him like the brother he was supposed to be. I declined the call. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in months. David Chen, divorce attorney extraordinaire. Dave and I had gone to Northwestern together, and he'd built a reputation as the guy you call when you want to absolutely destroy someone's life through completely legal means. He specialized in high-asset divorces, prenups, and what he called strategic financial repositioning. It was 3 a.m., but I sent him a text anyway. Need to talk. Urgent. We'll pay your emergency rate. He responded within 10 minutes. Jesus, what did you do? Never mind, don't tell me over text. Office at 9 a.m. Gee, sir, bring everything. Everything. That was going to be a lot of everything. I spent the next 5 hours building a comprehensive financial profile of my relationship with Sarah. Every joint account, every shared expense, every loan I'd co-signed, every bill I'd paid on her behalf. The numbers were staggering. Over 3 years, I'd contributed approximately $180,000 more to our shared life than she had. I'd paid for her car repairs, her student loan payments, her credit card bills, her health insurance premiums. I'd been subsidizing her lifestyle while she'd been subsidizing Marcus's dick. The spreadsheet was beautiful in its thoroughness. Color-coded tabs for different categories of expenses. Formulas that calculated compound interest on loans I'd effectively given her. Graphs that showed the disparity in our financial contributions over time. It was organized, professional, and absolutely devastating. But that was just the beginning. See, while I'd been building our financial foundation, Sarah had been building something else. A digital footprint. She'd been documenting her own betrayal, one Instagram story at a time. All those mysterious nights out that she'd been so cagey about. She'd been posting about them. Geotagged photos at expensive restaurants, selfies in hotel bars, pictures of expensive gifts that I definitely hadn't bought her. The woman had been creating her own evidence trail, and she'd been doing it on social media platforms that I had access to. Because we'd been sharing passwords, sharing accounts, sharing everything like the happy couple we were supposed to be. I opened Instagram and started scrolling through her posts from the past 8 months. The story they told was incredible. Expensive dinners, weekend getaways, shopping sprees, spa days. All happening on days when she told me she was working late, or visiting her sister, or dealing with family obligations. But the metadata was what really interested me. Every photo was geotagged. Every post was timestamped. And when I cross-referenced her social media activity with our bank statements, the pattern became clear. She'd been using our joint accounts to fund her affair. That spa day she'd posted about last month, charged to our joint credit card. That expensive dinner at the steakhouse downtown, also our joint credit card. Those weekend trips to the boutique hotel across town, You guessed it, our joint credit card. She'd been documenting her betrayal and making me pay for it. I laughed out loud in Jake's dark guest room. Actually laughed. Because the audacity was so incredible, so breathtakingly stupid that it was almost admirable. Almost. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail from Marcus this time. I played it on speaker, listening to his voice crack as he tried to explain himself. Look, I know how this looks, but you don't understand the whole situation. Sarah and we didn't plan this. It just happened. We've been trying to figure out how to tell you because we knew it would hurt you, but we didn't know how to. I deleted the message before he finished. Trying to figure out how to tell me? For 8 months? While they were fucking in my bed and spending my money and lying to my face at every family gathering. They'd had 8 months to figure out how to tell me. What they'd figured out instead was how to be more creative with their betrayal. But that was fine, because I'd been figuring things out too. The next few hours flew by in a blur of research and preparation. I compiled 3 years of financial records, organized by category and cross-referenced with timestamps. I downloaded every piece of digital evidence I could find. Social media posts, email records, text message backups, location data from shared apps. I built a timeline of their affair that was more detailed than most criminal investigations. By the time I needed to leave for Dave's office, I had a comprehensive dossier that would have made the FBI proud. Every lie, every deception, every dollar they'd spent, every moment they'd stolen from me, all documented, organized, and ready for strategic deployment. Jake was making coffee when I emerged from the guest room, looking like I'd been through a war. "You look like shit," he said, handing me a mug. "But also like you're about to fuck someone's life up. It's a weird combination." "Both things can be true," I told him, closing my laptop. "I'm about to go see Dave Chen." Jake whistled low. "Dave Chen? Damn, dude. You're really going nuclear on this." "They went nuclear first," I said, checking my watch. "I'm just responding with appropriate force." The drive to Dave's office was the first time I'd been alone with my thoughts since the initial shock had worn off. And the weird thing was, I felt calm, focused, like I'd found my center again after being knocked off balance. The hurt was still there, don't get me wrong. The betrayal still felt like a physical wound. But underneath that pain was something else, purpose. For the first time in months, I had a clear objective, a defined mission, a problem that could be solved through careful planning and strategic execution. Sarah and Marcus had made a mistake. They'd underestimated me. They'd assumed I'd be devastated, that I'd be too heartbroken to think clearly, too trusting to look too closely at the evidence they'd left behind. They'd assumed I'd be the victim in this story. But I'd spent my entire career turning around failing companies, restructuring debt, and finding creative solutions to complex problems. I'd built my reputation on being thorough, being patient, and being absolutely ruthless when the situation called for it. And this situation definitely called for it. Dave's office was in one of those downtown buildings that screams expensive lawyer. All glass and steel and views of the city that cost more per square foot than most people's annual salary. His secretary showed me to his office, where Dave was waiting with coffee and the kind of expression that meant he'd already guessed this was going to be interesting. "So," he said before I'd even sat down, "who are we destroying today?" I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. "My fiancé and my brother. They've been fucking for 8 months, and I want to make sure they understand that actions have consequences." Dave leaned back in his chair and grinned. "I love my job. Show me what you've got." For the next 2 hours, I walked him through everything. The financial records, the social media evidence, the timeline of their affair, the legal framework of our shared assets. Dave took notes, asked questions, and occasionally made sounds of professional appreciation when I showed him something particularly damning. "This is beautiful work," he said when I finished. "Absolutely beautiful. You've basically built their entire case for them. So what can we do?" "We can do a lot," Dave said, leaning forward. "The question is, how far do you want to go? Because based on what you've shown me, we could probably get you full recovery of your financial contributions, plus damages, plus interest. We could make this very, very expensive for them." "How expensive?" Dave smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Well, let's just say that by the time we're done, they're going to wish they'd thought twice before fucking with someone who keeps this kind of documentation." The plan he outlined was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its scope. We would start with the joint accounts, immediate freezing of assets, pending a full financial audit. Then we'd move to asset recovery, calculating exactly how much I'd contributed to our shared life and pursuing full restitution. Finally, we'd leveraged the digital evidence to demonstrate a pattern of fraudulent behavior that could have both civil and criminal implications. The beauty of this, Dave explained, is that everything they've done has been documented. They've created their own evidence trail. They've made this easy for us. What about Marcus? What about him? He's been living in your house, eating your food, using your resources while fucking your girlfriend. We can calculate the fair market value of room and board, plus interest, plus damages for emotional distress. Your brother just became a very expensive hobby. I left Dave's office feeling like I'd just been handed the keys to a very powerful weapon. The plan was comprehensive, legally sound, and completely devastating. More importantly, it was already in motion. Dave had filed preliminary paperwork that would freeze our joint accounts pending a full audit. Sarah would find out about it when she tried to use her debit card later that afternoon. The thought of her standing in some store, watching her card get declined, having to explain to the cashier that there seemed to be some mistake, it was almost enough to make me smile. Almost. Because this was just the beginning. Dave had given me the legal framework, but the real work was just starting. I had calls to make, documents to gather, and a very careful sequence of events to orchestrate. Sarah and Marcus thought they'd gotten away with something. They thought they'd been clever, sneaking around behind my back, planning their future together while I bankrolled their betrayal. They had no idea what was coming, but they were about to learn that some people don't get mad. Some people get even, and some people get both. The first domino fell at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday. I know the exact time because I was sitting in my office, pretending to review quarterly projections while actually refreshing my phone every 30 seconds, waiting for the show to begin. Dave had timed everything perfectly. The account freeze would go into effect right around lunchtime, which meant Sarah would probably discover it when she tried to buy her usual overpriced salad at that trendy place downtown. My phone buzzed at 2:47. What the fuck did you do? No greeting, no apology, no acknowledgement of the fact that she'd been caught cheating with my brother in my own bed. Just immediate rage that her access to my money had been cut off. The audacity was breathtaking, really. Even now, even after being caught red-handed, her first concern wasn't the relationship she'd destroyed or the brother she'd corrupted. It was the credit card that had just been declined. I let the call go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message she left. And I swear to God, it was better than Christmas morning. Pick up your fucking phone. Her voice was shrill, panicked. I'm standing in the middle of Whole Foods like an idiot because my card got declined, and they're saying there's some kind of hold on the account? What the hell is going on? Call me back right now. I saved the voicemail for posterity. The second call came 10 minutes later. Marcus this time, and he sounded even more frantic than Sarah. Dude, what the fuck? My student loan payment got returned, and they're saying my account's been frozen. I've got rent due tomorrow, and I deleted that one without listening to the whole thing. But the fact that his student loan payment had bounced meant the automated withdrawal from our joint account had been rejected, which meant he'd been using our shared money to pay his bills, which was just another line item to add to the ever-growing list of things he owed me for. The third call was from Sarah again, and this time she was crying. Real tears, not the fake ones she'd been producing in my bedroom 3 days ago. These were tears of genuine panic, the kind you get when you realize your comfortable life is disappearing in real time. Please, just talk to me. She sobbed into my voicemail. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but this isn't just hurting me. You're hurting innocent people. The florist, the caterer, my student loans, all those payments are bouncing. Please, let's just talk like adults. Innocent people. That was rich. Like I was the one who'd chosen to fuck my brother in my own bed while using my money to pay for the privilege. Like I was the one who'd been lying for 8 months while spending my savings on weekend getaways with her lover. But the part about the wedding vendors was interesting. I'd forgotten about those automatic payments. The florist, the caterer, the venue, all set up to be paid from our joint account over the next 6 months leading up to the wedding. A wedding that was obviously not happening anymore, but that Sarah had apparently been planning to continue paying for, while she figured out how to break up with me gently. I called Dave. How long before they figure out this isn't temporary? I asked. Probably another few hours. He said, the bank will send them formal notification by end of business today. That's when the real panic sets in. And the asset recovery paperwork? Filing this afternoon. Should be served tomorrow morning. Both of them simultaneously. Dave had arranged for process servers to deliver the papers at the same time. Sarah at her work, Marcus at his apartment. Maximum impact, Minimum opportunity for them to coordinate their response. It was beautiful, really. Strategic and efficient and completely devastating. What about the other thing? I asked. Your brother's scholarship? Already made the call. Turns out lying on your financial aid applications about your living situation and sources of support is considered fraud. They'll be conducting a full audit of his financial records. That had been my idea. Marcus had been receiving need-based financial assistance for law school, claiming he was supporting himself independently. But he'd been living in my house, eating my food, and using my Wi-Fi for the past 2 years. Not exactly the picture of financial independence he'd painted for the scholarship committee. The beautiful thing about having a brother in law school is that law schools take academic integrity very seriously. The even more beautiful thing is that financial aid fraud can result in not just losing your funding, but having to repay everything you've already received. With interest. Immediately, my phone rang again. Sarah, of course. I was starting to think she'd figured out that I wasn't going to answer, but she kept calling anyway. Like persistence would somehow undo the fact that she'd been fucking my brother for 8 months. This time I answered. What do you want, Sarah? Oh, thank God, she said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. Listen, I know you're upset. Upset? I laughed, and it came out cold and sharp. Upset is when someone cuts you off in traffic. Upset is when your coffee order is wrong. What I am is methodical. What does that mean? It means you're about to find out what happens when you systematically betray someone who has access to all your financial information. There was a long pause. I could practically hear the wheels turning in her head as she tried to process what I just said. You can't do this, she said finally. Those are joint accounts. You can't just freeze me out of my own money. My money, I corrected. And actually I can. Funny thing about joint accounts. Either party can place a hold pending a full audit, especially when there's evidence of fraudulent activity. Fraudulent activity? Her voice went up an octave. What are you talking about? I'm talking about using our joint credit card to pay for your hotel rooms with Marcus. I'm talking about 8 months of unexplained cash withdrawals. I'm talking about funding your affair with my money while lying to my face about where you were and who you were with. Another long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was small and scared. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said. I have the receipts. Literally. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, lingerie purchases, cash withdrawals, all cross-referenced with your social media posts and your location data. Did you know your phone tracks everywhere you go? Because I do. I've been tracking your cheating for 8 months, and I didn't even know it. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, quick and shallow like she was having a panic attack. What do you want? She whispered. I want my money back, I said. All of it. Every dollar I spent on you. Every bill I paid. Every expense I covered while you were fucking my brother behind my back. I want full restitution, plus interest, plus damages for emotional distress. I don't have that kind of money. I know, I said. That's going to be your problem. I hung up. The rest of the afternoon was a masterclass in systematic destruction. Dave called every hour with updates. The formal notifications had been delivered. The asset recovery papers had been filed. The audit request had been approved. Sarah's work had been contacted about potential garnishment of wages. Marcus's law school had confirmed they would be reviewing his financial aid status. But the real show was happening on social media. Because Sarah, bless her heart, had decided to go public with her victim narrative. Her Instagram story was a thing of beauty, going through a really difficult time right now. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you deepest. Betrayal comes in many forms. She'd posted a photo of herself crying in her car with some bullshit caption about how financial abuse was a form of domestic violence and how she was standing strong against manipulation and control. Financial abuse. The woman who'd been spending my money on her affair was claiming I was financially abusing her by cutting off her access to my accounts. The cognitive dissonance was incredible. But here's the thing about social media. It's public, which means her little pity party was creating a digital record of her response to being caught cheating. And Dave was screenshotting everything. This is gold, he texted me. She's basically admitting to using joint finances while claiming you're the one being abusive. Keep her talking. So I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I commented on her post. Financial abuse is when someone uses your money to fund their affair with your brother. What you're experiencing is called consequences. The comment blew up. Her friends started responding, asking what I was talking about. My friends started weighing in with support. People I barely knew were asking for details. Within an hour, the whole thing had turned into a public spectacle, with Sarah scrambling to control a narrative that was spinning completely out of her hands. She deleted the post. Then she blocked me. Then she made her account private. But the internet is forever, and Dave had already saved everything. My phone rang again. Marcus this time, and he sounded desperate. Look, can we please just talk? Like in person? This is getting out of hand. You're right, I said. It is getting out of hand. You should have thought about that before you started fucking my girlfriend in my bed. I know we fucked up. Fucked up? I interrupted. Fucking up is forgetting to take out the trash. Fucking up is being late to dinner. What you did was systematically betray me for 8 months while I supported you financially and emotionally. What you did was plan to steal my life while I was paying for your education. It wasn't planned. 8 months, Marcus. 8 months of hotel receipts and restaurant charges and weekend getaways, all paid for with my money. 8 months of lying to my face at family dinners while you were fucking my girlfriend. That's not an accident. That's a conspiracy. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. What do you want me to do? I want you to face the consequences of your choices, I said. I want you to understand that actions have repercussions. I want you to learn that you can't just take whatever you want from people who love you and expect them to smile and say thank you. I'll make it right, he said. Whatever it takes, I'll make it right. You can't make it right. I told him, you can't unfuck my girlfriend. You can't unbetray me. You can't undestroy our family. All you can do now is pay for what you've done. I hung up on him too. The rest of the week unfolded like a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction. The asset recovery papers were served on Friday morning. Sarah called me crying, begging me to reconsider, explaining that she'd have to move back in with her parents, that her car would be repossessed, that her credit would be destroyed. Marcus got hit even harder. The financial aid review had uncovered not just his living situation, but also the fact that I'd been paying his car insurance, his health insurance, and covering various other expenses that he'd failed to report as sources of support. The school wanted immediate repayment of 3 years of need-based aid, plus penalties. His scholarship was revoked. His standing in the program was under review. But the real masterpiece was the joint credit card statements that Dave had submitted as evidence. 18 months of charges, all carefully categorized and cross-referenced with social media posts and location data. The story they told was devastating. A systematic pattern of using shared resources to fund an extramarital affair, complete with timestamps and geolocation data that proved exactly when and where each betrayal had occurred. Dave called me Friday afternoon with an update that made my whole week. They want to settle, he said. Both of them? Both of them. Sarah's attorney called this morning. Marcus's called this afternoon. They're willing to agree to full restitution plus reasonable damages in exchange for us not pursuing criminal charges. Criminal charges? Fraud, theft by deception, identity theft, using your financial accounts for personal expenses while lying about the nature of those expenses. It's a stretch, but given the evidence and the amounts involved, a prosecutor might be interested. The settlement negotiations took another week. Dave handled most of it, but he kept me informed of every detail. Sarah would be paying me back over the next 5 years with interest. Her car, her jewelry, her photography equipment, all of it was going toward the debt. She'd had to take a second job and move back in with her parents. Her Instagram account, once full of glamorous lifestyle shots, had gone completely dark. Marcus had it worse. The law school had agreed not to pursue criminal charges in exchange for immediate repayment of his financial aid. But that meant he'd had to withdraw from the program entirely. He'd moved back to our parents' house, the same house where I'd spent Christmas morning 3 months ago, watching him open presents I'd helped pay for, listening to him talk about his bright future in law, completely oblivious to the fact that he was already planning to destroy my life. The final insult came when I realized that the wedding venue was non-refundable. The deposit I'd put down 6 months ago was gone, and there was no getting it back. But Dave had a suggestion. Why don't you use it? He said. Throw a party, celebrate your new life. And that's exactly what I did. I sent invitations to everyone who'd been invited to the wedding, friends, family, co-workers, Sarah's relatives, Marcus's law school buddies. The invitations were beautiful, printed on the same cardstock we'd chosen for our wedding announcements. You're invited to celebrate my freedom from people who mistake kindness for weakness. Date, original wedding date. Location, original wedding venue. Dress code, whatever makes you feel like a winner. RSVP, yes, I'll be there to celebrate your escape. Or no, I'm busy washing my hair. The party was incredible. 80 people showed up, including some of Sarah's friends who'd apparently been waiting for an excuse to tell me they'd never liked her anyway. Marcus's law school buddies came to express their sympathy and to distance themselves from his reputation. Even some of my coworkers showed up because nothing brings people together like a good revenge story. Jake gave a toast that brought the house down. To my buddy who discovered that the best revenge isn't living well, it's comprehensive financial planning and really good documentation. I gave a speech of my own, thanking everyone for their support and explaining how the past few weeks had taught me the difference between people who love you and people who use you. I talked about trust, about betrayal, about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who would never dream of fucking your brother in your own bed. The crowd loved it. Sarah's cousin came up to me afterward and apologized for her family, explaining that everyone had suspected something was wrong, but nobody had wanted to say anything. Marcus's best friend told me he'd always thought Marcus was a selfish asshole, but had hoped I was a good influence on him. But the best part was the cake. I'd ordered it from the same bakery Sarah had chosen for our wedding cake, but instead of our names, it said Freedom in elegant script lettering. Instead of bride and groom figurines on top, there was a single figure, a man in a suit, arms raised in victory. As I cut the cake, surrounded by people who actually gave a shit about me, I realized something important. I wasn't the victim in this story anymore. I wasn't the guy who'd been betrayed and humiliated and left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. I was the guy who'd turned the tables. The guy who'd taken control of his own narrative. The guy who'd made sure that actions had consequences and that people who mistake kindness for weakness learn exactly how expensive that mistake can be. My phone had been buzzing all evening with messages from numbers I didn't recognize. People who'd seen the social media fallout, who'd heard about the settlement, who wanted to know if the rumors were true, but I ignored them all. Well, almost all. There was one message I couldn't resist reading. It was from Sarah. I hope you're happy. I typed back, I'm getting there. And for the first time in months, that was actually true. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new apartment, a place Sarah and Marcus have never been, will never be, watching the sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows that I paid for with money that's actually mine. The view is incredible. The rent is expensive as hell, and every single dollar of it comes from accounts that only have my name on them. Funny how much better your finances look when you're not subsidizing other people's betrayals. My phone buzzes with a text from Jake. Drinks tonight? Want to hear about your latest Tinder disaster? I laugh and text back. Can't. Got a date. A real one this time. Not a revenge plot or a financial audit. Because here's what nobody tells you about successful revenge. Eventually, you have to stop living in the past and start building a future. And that future, it turns out, looks pretty fucking good when you're not sharing it with people who mistake your generosity for stupidity. The settlement payments have been coming in like clockwork. Sarah's been as reliable with her monthly payments as she never was with her fidelity. Every transfer that hits my account feels like a small victory. A monthly reminder that actions have consequences and that sometimes the universe actually delivers justice in installments. Marcus's payments are smaller but more satisfying because I know exactly how much he's struggling to make them. Last I heard through the family grapevine, he's working 2 jobs and living in our parents' basement, trying to save enough money to maybe reapply to law school in a few years. Maybe, if any law school will take him after the academic integrity review. Our parents tried to intervene, of course. Called me up about 3 months ago with some bullshit about family forgiveness and healing old wounds. They wanted me to come to Sunday dinner, to sit around the same table where Marcus and I used to argue about football and politics, to pretend like nothing had happened. He's your brother, my mother said. Like that was supposed to mean something after what he'd done. He was my brother, I corrected. Now he's just some guy who owes me money. They stopped calling after that, and honestly, I'm fine with it. Turns out you don't actually need people in your life who think betrayal is something you should just get over because of shared DNA. The weirdest part about the whole thing is how many people have reached out to tell me they saw it coming. Sarah's college roommate called me to say she'd always thought Sarah was sketchy, but hadn't wanted to interfere. My cousin mentioned that Marcus had always been selfish, and that she wasn't surprised he'd done something like this. Even my barber, my fucking barber, told me he'd noticed Sarah seemed different the last few times she'd come in with me. Everyone saw it but me. Or maybe everyone saw it including me, but I was too invested in the life I thought we were building to pay attention to the signs that it was all bullshit. But that's the thing about trust. It makes you vulnerable in ways you don't realize until someone takes advantage of it. And the thing about betrayal is that it teaches you lessons you can't unlearn. I'm smarter now, more careful, less likely to assume that other people's intentions are as honest as mine. Not cynical exactly, just educated. The woman I'm seeing now, her name is Amanda. She's a marketing director. She has her own apartment and her own bank account and zero interest in merging our financial lives anytime soon. She knows the whole story. I told her on our third date because I figured she had a right to know what she was getting into. Jesus, she said when I finished. That's horrible, but also kind of impressive. Like the revenge part, not the cheating part. Most people would have just cried and eaten ice cream. I did eat ice cream. I told her, but I also did spreadsheets. She laughed. Spreadsheets are better than ice cream. That's when I knew she was a keeper. We're taking things slow, which is exactly what I need right now. She's got her life, I've got mine, and we're building something together that's based on choice rather than convenience. No shared bank accounts, no merged social media profiles, no assumptions about forever. Just two people who like each other and want to see where it goes. It's refreshing, actually, knowing that she's with me because she wants to be, not because I'm paying her bills or supporting her lifestyle or providing stability while she figures out what she really wants. Knowing that if she wanted to leave, she could leave, and if she's staying, it's because she genuinely wants to stay. Trust, it turns out, is more meaningful when it's chosen rather than assumed. I ran into Sarah about a month ago at the grocery store where we used to shop together. She looked tired, older, like the past year had aged her in dog years. She was buying generic everything. Generic cereal, generic pasta, generic soup. The kind of shopping you do when money is tight and every dollar counts. She saw me before I saw her, and for a moment I thought she might try to hide. But instead she walked over like she had something to say. "You look good," she said, and there was something in her voice that might have been regret. Or maybe just exhaustion. "I feel good," I told her, because it was true. "Are you happy?" she asked. "I mean, really happy? Was it worth it?" I thought about that for a moment. Was destroying her life worth the satisfaction I'd gotten from it? Was the systematic dismantling of everything she'd built worth the peace of mind that came from knowing she'd face consequences for her choices? "Yeah," I said finally. "It was worth it. Not because I'm cruel, but because you needed to learn that other people aren't just resources for you to exploit. And I needed to learn that I don't have to accept being treated like shit just because I love someone." She nodded like she'd expected that answer. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what it's worth, I'm really sorry. It's worth exactly as much as your monthly payment," I told her, which is to say something, but not enough to change anything. She winced, but she didn't argue. And I walked away feeling not vindicated exactly, just finished. Like the last chapter of a book I'd been ready to stop reading for months. The crazy thing is, I actually am happy. Not in spite of what happened, but because of how I handled what happened. Because I didn't just roll over and accept being betrayed. Because I didn't let them get away with it. Because I proved to myself that I'm not the kind of person who can be taken advantage of indefinitely. Some people might call what I did excessive. Some people might say I should have just broken up with Sarah and cut Marcus out of my life and moved on. Some people might think that comprehensive financial retaliation was overkill. Those people have never been systematically betrayed by the two people they trusted most in the world. Those people have never had to discover that their entire relationship was a lie, that their brother was a snake, that their money was being used to fund their own humiliation. Those people don't understand that sometimes the only way to heal from betrayal is to make sure the people who betrayed you understand exactly what they lost when they chose to throw away your trust. My settlement payments still come in every month, regular as clockwork. I don't need the money anymore. My career took off after I got my personal life sorted out, probably because I wasn't distracted by the constant low-level stress of living with someone who was lying to me. But I keep accepting them anyway. Not because I'm cruel, but because consistency is important. Because following through on consequences is how you build a reputation as someone who doesn't get fucked with. Because some lessons are expensive, and the cost is the point. Amanda's coming over tonight. We're going to cook dinner together, something we both enjoy, something we both contribute to, Something that belongs to both of us without either of us having to sacrifice our independence to get it. After dinner, we might talk about the future. Not the big, scary, permanent kind of future that Sarah and I used to plan, but the small, manageable kind of future that happens one choice at a time. Next weekend's plans, next month's vacation, next season's goals. The kind of future you build with someone who chooses you every day, rather than someone who stays with you because it's convenient. My phone buzzes. A text from Dave. Annual settlement review coming up. Sarah's been consistent with payments. Want to discuss early payoff options? I think about it for a moment, then text back, no. Let's stick to the original schedule. Some lessons take time to sink in, because here's what I learned from catching my girlfriend in bed with my brother and taking everything in the divorce that wasn't actually a divorce, but felt like one anyway. Trust is earned, consequences are necessary, and spreadsheets really are better than ice cream. And sometimes, just sometimes, the best revenge isn't living well. It's living well while they pay for the privilege of having known you.